One of the biggest rap songs in the history of music only happened because a security guard happened to shoot his shot with a music manager, and because Stevie Wonder, after thinking it over long and hard, decided to say yes. Coolio came in that day and he said, "I want it." The label said, this is huge. One problem. They took it to Stevie. He had complete leverage and he said no. For the year of 1995, on planet Earth, no song sold more records than Gangsta's Paradise. One of the biggest rap songs in the history of music only happened because a security guard happened to shoot his shot with a music manager, and because Stevie Wonder, after thinking it over long and hard, decided to say yes. In 1994, Doug Rasheed was a man with big dreams. He wanted to be in the music business, but he wasn't sure how, but he wanted to be close to it. So he got a job at Sony Pictures. Was that going to get him into the music business? Maybe, maybe not, but it would put him around people that knew people. And as a hustler, he knew all he needed to do was meet someone that knew someone. And so he worked there. So he would often look at the people who were walking on the Sony Pictures, and he would try to see who looked flashy, who looked like they knew that they might be in the business. He saw one guy walking on and off the sets and the stages and through the campus. And that guy was Paul Stewart. And over a period of time, Doug finally introduced himself to Paul Stewart and said, "Hey, I'm Doug Rasheed. I'm looking to get into music. What do you do?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm a music manager. I have a lot of artists, a lot of LA-based artists and hip hop and R&B, rap. I'm really into it." So that was a good intro. Over a period of time, they struck up a friendship. And as they became better friends, they discovered they both had a lot in common. They both loved music. So at some point, Paul Stewart said to Doug, "Hey, man, I'm going to buy a house up in the Hollywood Hills. And in this house, I'm going to have a studio. I really like the way you think about music. I like your ideas. How about this? Why don't you move into the house, help me work with artists as they come to the house/studio?" Doug was all about it. Doug quit his job as a security guard at Sony Pictures. He moved into Paul Stewart's house in the Hollywood Hills, and he would help Paul with all the little things that a music manager does. He would help him find music. He would actually got involved in producing and engineering. So he really was following his dream. And as it happens, he and Paul used to play a game. And that game was who could dig through their collection of music and find the best samples. And they would challenge each other to find a sample. Now, there are a lot of samples that everybody uses, and there are many samples that a lot of people use, but there are very few good samples that no one uses. And that's what they were looking for. They were trying to one-up each other on who could find the best sample. So Doug, on one of these challenges, he was digging through his albums, and he came across Stevie Wonder's 1976 masterpiece, Songs in the Key of Life. And on that Songs in the Key of Life, he found the track, never released as a single. It was an album track. It was called Pastime Paradise. And he loved it. He thought it had something about it. So he started taking Pastime Paradise and he started building around it. He used a sample of Pastime Paradise. And then off of that, he began to use music architecture around it and build a song. He presented it to Paul and said, beat this. Paul knew Doug had found a gem. And what he had done to that gem was he had polished it up by all of the music in the arrangement and the orchestration around that sample of Stevie Wonder's, that Pastime Paradise. He knew there was something there. And so he's like, "Hey man, dude, you got a winner there. I love this. Let's see what you can do with it." So there was another singer who would come to the house, and his name was LV. And Doug had LV do a chorus that he felt was kind of in theme with what he was envisioning for the chorus of this Pastime Paradise. So LV went into the studio there and he started working on the chorus for Pastime Paradise. And it was good. It was very, very good. One day he was working on this mix that he had created around this sample of Pastime Paradise. And he was working the chorus into it. And an artist who Paul Stewart managed by the name of Coolio came into the house. Coolio had a big hit the year before. He had a top 10 hit with a rap cover of Lakeside's Fantastic Voyage. That song went to number 4. That was big. He went to number 4 on Billboard's Hot 100. It wasn't like number 4 on the rap charts. It was number 4 nationally. So Coolio had a big hit, but on that hit, no one saw anything bigger for Coolio. No one thought, oh, this Coolio, he's going to cross over. Nah, no one saw that. They're like, oh yeah, he's got, funny hair. And that's a really cool song. But yeah, he's probably going to be like In and Out. He's probably going to be like, Young MC or something. But Coolio came in that day and he said, I want it. He heard it and he said, I want it. And Doug was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I want that song. I need that song. Now, mind you, musically, the song was 99.9% done. Between Doug's creating the orchestration and the arrangements around that sample and LV's chorus, it was pretty much done. The only thing they were missing were the lyrics or the rap. And so Doug told Coolio, well, you know what, man? If you can come up with a good rap over the top of this, because that's all I'm missing, if you can do that, then let's do it. Let's go. I mean, Doug knew this guy was coming off a top 10 hit. He had some juice. He had a little, character going on with the hair. So he's like, okay, let's go. So let's see what you can do. So Coolio came back within that week and he had penned the lyrics to what became known as Gangsta's Paradise. He started rapping, he started laying down the tracks, and everyone knew, oh my God, this is going to be big. What Coolio did with his lyrics he just lifted, it was already lifted up, and it got lifted up a little further with LB's chorus. Now it got lifted up even further with the lyrics that Coolio had created for the song. Everybody knew. Paul Stewart knew it. Doug Rasheed knew it. Everybody knew this was going to be big. So they created the master, and they took it to the label, and the label said, this is huge. One problem. And they're like, yeah, what's the problem? Did you get clearance from Stevie Wonder? Because you're essentially his song, Pastime Paradise, is essentially the complete basis for your song. Everything about your song is Pastime Paradise. The harmonic structure, the element of the chorus, everything is built around Pastime Paradise. Like, dude, you're going to get sued for everything you owe if you try to put this out there without getting it cleared. Now, that was a problem because everyone knew that Stevie Wonder had an issue with clearing his music to be used by rappers. Everybody knew that Stevie had a problem with that. And his problem wasn't necessarily rap. His problem was profanity. He really didn't want his music to be the background for profane language. And I respect him for that. And so they knew, oh my God, we're going to be up against it. Here they had a masterpiece and they couldn't release it because no one had thought to clear it ahead of time. It would have been a lot easier if they had gone to Stevie and said, hey, we're thinking of using Pastime Paradise. Stevie would have said, oh shit, that's a deep album cut. Like, I didn't think anyone would ever discover that. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Here, give me, 5%. Now they have built an entire song around it. As I said, the elements of the chorus, the harmonic structure, everything was based, and not even counting the sample, everything was based on his song. So they took it to Stevie. He had complete leverage, and he said no. So Stevie said, no, I don't want this song released. I don't want my music used with these profane lyrics. And he sent it back to Paul Stewart, Doug Rasheed, and Coolio. So now they were in a tough spot. Usually what artists would probably do is they would say, you know what, well, screw him. Like, I'm not going to do it. What I wrote down was art. I'm not going to change my art for the sake of a dollar, blah, blah, blah. Well, not in this case, because they knew they were sitting on a gold mine with this song. Once they heard it, they only had to hear it once in its finished form, and they knew this was going to go places. So Coolio decided, all right, well, I'm going to rewrite it. I'll write it without any profanity because I'm sitting on a gold mine here. And so they did. But that still did not mean that Stevie Wonder would release it because he still might not want it to be used for a rap song because he still might not want it to be used by a rapper. So they sent it. Stevie Wonder thought about it. Stevie Wonder had all the leverage in the world. As I said before, if they would have gone to him first, they probably could have got a good deal. But they went to him after they had built the complete song around that sample. And Stevie Wonder came back and said, okay, I want 75% of the publishing. Stevie Wonder on Gangsta's Paradise got 75% of every dollar that song earned. And I'll tell you how big it was in a minute. So that meant that LV, who contributed the chorus, Coolio, who contributed the lyrics, and Doug Rasheed, who had built the entire song, they had to split 25%. So each one of them, the deal they worked out was each one of them got an equal third, 8.33, 8.33, 8.33. But Stevie Wonder got his 75%. He got his genius tax. And so they decided, okay, I would rather have 8.33% of what I think might be a big hit here than nothing. And so they took the deal, they released the song, and it blew up. No one, they all thought it was going to be big, but no one envisioned how big Gangsta's Paradise became. It shot to number one in the United States, but it just didn't shoot to number one in the United States. It went to number one in 14 separate countries. And then it broke the top 10 in dozens of others. But number one in 14 countries, in addition to the United States. Then, for the year of 1995, on planet Earth, no song sold more records than Gangsta's Paradise. That's right. Gangsta's Paradise was the number one selling record in the entire world for 1995. In addition to that, it won the Grammy Award for Best Rap Single. Coolio, who could have just lived on as a genre star, now became a global name. Coolio would never have to really score another hit because of the amount of money that song made. That 8.33% could have let him live pretty comfortably for the rest of his life. In fact, Doug Rasheed in 2025, so 30 years after the release of Gangsta's Paradise, Doug Rasheed said he still receives more income annually from his 8.33% of Gangsta's Paradise than any other thing he does. Any other full-time job, any other production job, every year, that check from Gangsta's Paradise, his 8.33%, is bigger than any of it. I shudder to think how much Stevie Wonder made off of this. A security guard who had his hustle on, who was daring enough to walk up to a guy who he thought might be someone and struck up a conversation because of that, and because Stevie Wonder gave it a long, hard thought and said, yeah, okay, you can use my song. Those two decisions gave us maybe the biggest rap single of all time. That's why I love music history. I have a million of these stories. This is Music Daddy. Subscribe. Don't miss any of them.